My friends, I must begin with a truth so startling that it will disturb your very foundations. At this precise moment, as you listen to these words, you are either creating vast wealth or perpetuating devastating poverty. There exists no middle ground, no neutral territory in the realm of consciousness. Every single thought cascading through your mind, every emotion pulsing through your being, every belief you harbor about abundance, all of these are either constructing a fortune beyond your wildest dreams or cementing the chains of financial bondage. And here's what will astound you. 99% of humanity is unconsciously choosing destitution while believing they desire prosperity. They are their own worst enemy, and they don't even know it. The world has deceived you, my friend. It has taught you to bow before the altar of money, to chase it like a beggar chases scraps, to sacrifice your very soul upon the altar of materialism. But this worship of money is precisely what keeps it from you. The moment you chase anything, you declare yourself separate from it. The instant you long for wealth, you affirm your identity as one who lacks it. Listen with your entire being. You do not magnetize what you desire. You magnetize what you embody. You become a living magnet for experiences that match your dominant state of consciousness. If you are conscious of being someone who struggles financially, someone who must work themselves to exhaustion for every dollar, someone who lives in fear of not having enough, then that is precisely the reality you will continue to manifest. But what if I revealed to you the most closely guarded secret of every millionaire who has ever lived? What if I told you that their thoughts about money are diametrically opposed to everything you've been conditioned to believe? The prosperous individual does not think, "I wish I were wealthy." Never. The prosperous individual thinks, "I am wealthy." He doesn't hope for abundance. He assumes it as naturally as he assumes his own existence. He doesn't labor toward wealth. He labors from wealth. He doesn't see himself as becoming rich. He sees himself as expressing the richness that is already his divine nature. This is not mere positive thinking, my friend. This is not wishful fantasy or empty dreaming. This is the fundamental law governing all of existence. You become what you assume yourself to be, and you remain what you assume yourself to be. In the sacred texts, we find this profound truth. To him who has more will be given, and he will have abundance. But from him who has not, even what he has will be taken away. Many read this and see injustice, but I tell you it is the most precise description of the law of consciousness ever written. Those who possess the consciousness of wealth inevitably receive more wealth. Those who possess the consciousness of lack inevitably receive more lack. The wealthy become wealthier, not because they possess paper money, but because they possess the mental equivalent of wealth. They think from abundance, feel from security, and act from the unshakable knowledge of their own prosperity. Look around you at this very moment. Observe your bank account, your dwelling, your possessions, your entire financial situation. Everything you see is the faithful, exact reproduction of your habitual mental states. Your outer world is your inner world made visible. Your circumstances are not happening to you. They are happening through you. If you are displeased with what you observe, resist the temptation to blame external forces. The economy is not your problem. Your background is not your problem. Your education is not your problem. Your current job is not your problem. They are merely the effects of your consciousness, and effects can never change their cause. The question that will transform your life is not how can I acquire more money. The question is how can I become the type of person who naturally possesses wealth. Allow me to paint for you a detailed portrait of how a truly wealthy person thinks and feels throughout their day. When they awaken each morning, they don't anxiously check their bank balance. They know it's there, growing, multiplying. When they encounter something they desire, they don't calculate whether they can afford it. They simply decide whether they want it. When they meet others, they don't feel compelled to prove their worth through displays of wealth. They carry themselves with the quiet, unshakable confidence of someone who knows their value. When they give from overflow, not from sacrifice. When they invest from abundance, not from desperation. This is not arrogance, my friend. This is assumption. And assumption, though it may appear false to the senses, when persisted in with unwavering faith, will crystallize into undeniable fact. But here lies the secret that escapes most seekers. It is not sufficient to merely declare I am wealthy. You must cultivate the inner sensation, the feeling, the emotional reality of having infinite abundance. You must generate the actual experience of financial security so consistently that it becomes your natural state of being. Close your eyes for a moment. How would it feel to never worry about money again? How would it feel to know that you could purchase anything your heart desires? How would it feel to be so financially abundant that your greatest joy comes from blessing others? That feeling, that inner experience, that is your true treasure. It is more valuable than any external possession, because it is the source from which all external possessions flow. When you begin to consciously assume the state of wealth, the world will test your resolve. Your senses will present you with the same bank statements. Your bills will continue to arrive. People will treat you as they always have. Your circumstances may even seem to worsen temporarily. This is the crucial test. Will you remain faithful to your assumption of wealth, or will you allow the testimony of your senses to convince you that the law doesn't work? Remember, the seed planted in the ground appears to die before it springs forth as new life. Your assumption of wealth is that seed. Trust its invisible growth, even when you cannot yet see its fruit. Tonight, before you surrender to sleep, I want you to construct a scene in your imagination that implies your wealth is already a reality. Perhaps you see yourself signing a check for $1 million to your favorite charity. Perhaps you imagine walking through the rooms of your dream home, running your hands along the furniture you've lovingly selected. Perhaps you visualize the look of joy on your loved ones' faces as you surprise them with generous gifts. Make this scene vivid in every detail. Engage all your senses. Feel the pen in your hand as you sign that check. Smell the fragrance of flowers in your dream home. Hear the laughter of those you've blessed with your generosity. And as you fall asleep in that scene, you are impressing upon your subconscious mind the reality of your wealth. But don't confine this practice to your sleep time. Carry the feeling of wealth into every moment of your waking hours. When you pay bills, pay them with the attitude of someone who has unlimited resources. When you see expensive items, don't think I can't afford that. Think I choose not to purchase that at this moment. When you walk with the bearing of someone who owns vast wealth. When you speak with the confidence of someone who has never known financial insecurity. When you give with the generosity of someone who has so much that sharing is pure joy. You are not pretending to be wealthy. You are being wealthy in consciousness. And consciousness is the only reality that matters. What I'm sharing with you is not mystical nonsense. It is the most practical science ever discovered. Every great fortune in history began as an imagined reality in someone's mind. Every business empire was first constructed in the imagination of its founder. Every financial breakthrough was first experienced in consciousness before it appeared in the world. The Wright brothers soared through the skies in their imagination long before they ever left the ground. Thomas Edison illuminated the world in his mind before the first light bulb was invented. Henry Ford saw millions of automobiles on the roads before the first Model T was manufactured. They succeeded because they lived mentally in the reality of their fulfilled desires. They thought from their success, not toward it. What is your wealth story? Not your current circumstances, but your intended reality. In your ideal life, what is your net worth? How do you spend your days? What does your lifestyle look like? How do you feel when you contemplate your financial situation? Create this story with such vivid detail that it becomes more real to you than your present conditions. Describe your daily routine as a wealthy person. Visualize your homes, your investments, your philanthropic activities. Feel the emotions of someone who has achieved financial mastery. This is not fantasy, my friend. This is creation. You are literally architecting your future with the power of your imagination. Some of you are thinking, but I've tried visualization before. I've tried affirmations. Nothing changed. Let me ask you this. Did you persist? Did you maintain the feeling of wealth for weeks, months, even years if necessary? Or did you experiment for a few days and then revert to your old patterns of lack consciousness. The law of consciousness is exact and impartial. It will manifest precisely what you are, not what you wish to be. If you are someone who tries techniques but secretly doubts their effectiveness, you will receive evidence of their failure. But if you are someone who knows the law and applies it with unwavering faith, you will witness its miraculous power. As you persist in assuming wealth, you will notice subtle but profound changes in your inner world. You will stop frantically seeking wealth outside yourself, because you will feel it within yourself. You will stop envying the prosperity of others, because you will know your own infinite worth. You will stop fearing financial loss, because you will live from the consciousness of abundance. And then, as naturally as flowers bloom in spring, opportunities will begin to appear. The right people will come into your life. Doors will open that you never knew existed. Money will flow to you through channels you never imagined, not because you forced it, but because you became a magnet for it. But I must warn you of the traps that have destroyed many sincere seekers. First, do not look for immediate evidence of your wealth. The law operates according to its own perfect timing, not your impatience. Second, do not share your assumption with skeptics or those who live from lack consciousness. Sacred things must be kept sacred. Third, do not try to figure out how your wealth will manifest. Your job is to assume it is manifesting, not to engineer the process. The law knows exactly how to fulfill your assumption. Trust it completely. When you truly embody wealth consciousness, your entire relationship with money undergoes a radical transformation. You stop seeing money as scarce and start recognizing it as infinitely abundant. You stop hoarding money and start circulating it freely. You stop fearing its loss and start expecting its multiplication. The wealthy understand that money is simply crystallized consciousness, and consciousness is infinite. They know that losing money is impossible when you possess the consciousness that created it in the first place. Here's a beautiful paradox that only the truly wealthy understand. When you genuinely embody wealth consciousness, you realize that the feeling of abundance is infinitely more valuable than any material possession. You could lose every dollar and still be wealthy because wealth has become your state of being, not your bank balance. This is true security. This is lasting prosperity. This is the secret of secrets. Make this practice your daily sacrament. Each morning before your feet touch the floor, spend 10 minutes immersed in the feeling of wealth. Feel the security that comes from knowing you have more than enough. Feel the freedom that comes from unlimited resources. Feel the joy that comes from being able to bless others generously. Each evening, before sleep takes you, return to your scene of wealth fulfilled. Live in it completely. Make it so real that it becomes your preferred reality. Let sleep seal it into your subconscious mind, where it will work continuously to manifest your assumption. Just as money compounds in investment accounts, your wealth consciousness compounds in your mind. Each day you practice, each moment you maintain the feeling of prosperity. You are building unstoppable momentum. The wealthy person you are becoming grows stronger, while the poverty-conscious person you once were fades into irrelevance. Time becomes your ally when you use it to consistently assume wealth. When doubt arises, and it will arise, don't battle it. Simply return to your assumption of wealth. Doubt is merely old programming attempting to reassert itself. You are installing new software in your consciousness, and sometimes the old system resists the upgrade. Be gentle with yourself, but absolutely persistent in your practice. Every time you choose the assumption of wealth over the appearance of lack, you strengthen your new identity. You will know this teaching is working when you stop looking for evidence that it's working. You will know you've achieved true wealth consciousness when thinking about money brings you peace instead of anxiety, excitement instead of fear, gratitude instead of desperation. Your bank account will be the last thing to change, but it will change. The inner transformation always precedes the outer manifestation. From this moment forward, see yourself as a wealthy person having a temporary experience of financial limitation, not as a poor person hoping to become wealthy. This shift in identity changes everything. You are not becoming wealthy. You are wealthy, and you're simply allowing that truth to express itself in your physical world. Walk like wealth. Talk like wealth. Think like wealth. Feel like wealth. And wealth must manifest, because you have become its perfect expression. Here's how you'll know you've truly embodied wealth consciousness. You'll become naturally generous. Not because you're trying to manipulate the universe into giving you more, but because abundance has become your nature. When you know you have unlimited supply, giving becomes pure joy rather than sacrifice. Watch for this sign. When you find yourself wanting to give more, you'll know your consciousness is shifting. The truly wealthy live in what I call the Sabbath of consciousness, a place of rest and knowing. They don't strive and struggle for money. They don't work from desperation. They assume abundance and allow it to flow. They work from inspiration, not perspiration. This is the peace that surpasses all understanding. This is the rest that comes from knowing your security is guaranteed by the law of consciousness itself. You were never meant to experience poverty. Financial struggle is not your destiny. Lack is not spiritual. You are the operant power in your world, and it is your divine right to experience abundance in all its magnificent forms. The only thing standing between you and millions of dollars is your assumption about yourself. Change your assumption, and you literally change your world. Right now, in this precious moment, you stand at the crossroads of destiny. You can continue thinking as you've always thought and continue getting what you've always gotten. Or you can make the decision that will change everything. The decision to assume you are already wealthy and to persist in that assumption until it becomes your living reality. This is your million-dollar decision. This is your moment of power. This is your opportunity to step into the wealthy version of yourself that has always existed in potential. Let me share with you the most powerful technique I know for embodying wealth consciousness. Before you sleep tonight, imagine you are lying in bed in your dream home. Feel the luxury of your surroundings. Perhaps you're in a master bedroom with a view of the ocean, or in a penthouse overlooking the city lights. As you lie there, reflect on your day as a wealthy person. Perhaps you signed a major business deal, or made a generous donation to charity, or surprised a loved one with an expensive gift. Feel the satisfaction of living from abundance. Feel the joy of having unlimited resources. Make this so real that you fall asleep as a wealthy person. Your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between imagined and actual experiences. To your subconscious, you are wealthy, and it will work tirelessly to make that assumption your reality. Everything in the universe vibrates at a specific frequency, including states of consciousness. Poverty has its frequency, and wealth has its frequency. When you consistently assume wealth, you tune yourself to the frequency of abundance. You become a living radio station broadcasting prosperity. And the universe, which is nothing but consciousness responding to consciousness, must tune into your frequency and reflect it back to you as your experience. Transform your mornings with this wealth-building routine. Upon waking, before you check your phone or think about your problems, spend the first 10 minutes of your day in the consciousness of wealth. Feel grateful for your abundant resources. Imagine checking your investment accounts and seeing impressive returns. Visualize your day unfolding with ease and prosperity. Set the tone for your entire day by beginning it as a wealthy person. Your morning consciousness determines your daily experience. Many of you have been under what I call the poverty spell, a hypnotic trance induced by society, family, and your own repetitive thoughts of lack. This spell makes you believe that struggle is noble, that suffering is necessary, that wealth is for other people, but not for you. I am here to break that spell. You are not condemned to financial struggle. You are not destined for mediocrity. You are not limited by your current circumstances. You are the author of your financial story, and you can rewrite it starting now. Adopt the perspective of someone who has already achieved great wealth. How does such a person view challenges? As opportunities. How do they view setbacks? As temporary inconveniences. How do they view other people? As potential partners and allies, not competitors. When you think like a wealthy person, you act like a wealthy person. When you act like a wealthy person, you become a wealthy person. It's that simple and that profound. The best investment you can make is not in stocks, bonds, or real estate. The best investment you can make is in your own consciousness. Every moment you spend assuming wealth is a deposit in the bank of your future prosperity. Every time you choose abundance over lack, you're compounding your wealth consciousness. This investment pays dividends that no external investment can match. Tonight, I want you to engage in the most powerful wealth visualization of your life. Imagine you're walking into a bank to make a deposit. But this isn't just any deposit. You're depositing a check for $10 million. Feel the weight of the check in your hand. See the numbers written clearly. Experience the bank teller's amazement and respect. As you hand over the check, feel the satisfaction of someone who has achieved extraordinary financial success. Feel the security of knowing that this is just one of many large deposits you'll make. Walk out of that bank with the confidence of a multi-millionaire. This isn't daydreaming. This is rehearsing for your future reality. Forget generic affirmations like I am rich. Instead, craft specific, feeling-based affirmations that resonate with your soul. I am so grateful for my financial abundance that I can barely contain my joy. Money flows to me easily and abundantly from multiple sources. I am a magnet for wealth and prosperity in all its forms. Say these affirmations with conviction, with feeling, with the certainty of someone who knows they're already true. Notice how your mindset shifts as you embody wealth consciousness. You stop asking, can I afford it? And start asking, do I want it? You stop thinking about money as something you need and start thinking about it as something you have. You stop seeing wealthy people as different from you and start recognizing them as your peers. These subtle shifts in thinking create massive shifts in your external reality. True wealth consciousness creates what I call abundance overflow. When you truly feel wealthy, you naturally want to share your abundance with others. You tip generously. You donate to causes you believe in. You surprise loved ones with gifts. You invest in experiences that create joy. This overflow is not about trying to get more money through giving. It's the natural expression of someone who knows they have more than enough. Practice this wealth meditation daily. Sit comfortably and imagine golden light surrounding your body. This light represents infinite abundance. Feel it penetrating every cell, every atom of your being. You are literally made of abundance. You are abundance in human form. As you breathe in, you're breathing in prosperity. As you breathe out, you're exhaling any beliefs about lack or limitation. You are becoming a perfect conduit for wealth to flow through you and to you. Interestingly, wealthy people have different problems than poor people. Instead of wondering how to pay bills, they wonder which investment opportunities to pursue. Instead of worrying about having enough money, they worry about having too much sitting idle. Instead of seeking financial security, they seek ways to create more value in the world. Start having wealthy people's problems. Start worrying about having too much money rather than too little. This shift in the nature of your concerns signals a shift in your consciousness. People often ask me, how long will it take for my wealth to manifest? The answer is, it manifests the moment you assume it. The delay you experience is not in the manifestation, but in your acceptance of it as real. The moment you truly feel wealthy, you are wealthy. The external world then rearranges itself to match your inner conviction. Stop asking when it will happen. It's happening now. You're wealthy now. Accept it now. When you embody true wealth consciousness, you don't just change your own life. You change the lives of everyone around you. Your children learn that abundance is natural. Your spouse experiences the security of living with someone who knows their worth. Your friends are inspired by your transformation. You become a beacon of possibility, showing others what's achievable when you align with the law of consciousness. Now that you understand how to become wealthy in imagination, how to live in the end, and assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, I must share with you the most crucial element that will accelerate your manifestation beyond anything you've ever experienced. You see, my friends, imagination without gratitude is like a seed without water. It contains all the potential for growth, but it lacks the nourishing element that brings it to full bloom in your physical experience. Many of my students come to me and say, Neville, I've been imagining my wealth. I've been living in the end, but nothing seems to be happening. And when I examine their practice, I discover they're missing the sacred ingredient that transforms imagination from mere fantasy into living reality. That ingredient is gratitude. Not gratitude as an afterthought. Not gratitude as a polite thank you to the universe, but gratitude as the very breath of creation itself. Here's what will shake you to your core. The moment you truly feel grateful for the wealth you've been imagining, you bridge the gap between the invisible and the visible, between the imagined and the manifest. Gratitude is not the result of wealth. Gratitude is the cause of wealth. Let me tell you about a man who came to me in 1965, completely broke, living in a single room with his wife and 2 children. He had $17 to his name and rent due in 3 days. He had been practicing the techniques I taught about imagination, but his results were slow and inconsistent. Then I introduced him to what I'm about to share with you now, the sacred art of gratitude as the accelerator of manifestation. Within 6 months, he owned 3 properties and had established a thriving business. By year's end, he was worth more than he had ever imagined possible. What changed? He learned to feel grateful for his imagined wealth as if it were already his reality. And consciousness is the only reality. Now, before we dive deep into the practical application, you must understand something fundamental about the nature of gratitude. Gratitude is not merely an emotion. It is a creative force. It is the very breath of God within you, acknowledging what already exists in the invisible realm of infinite possibilities. When you feel grateful for something, you are not hoping for it. You are not wishing for it. You are recognizing its reality. And recognition is the first step in manifestation. The Bible tells us, before they call, I will answer, and while they are yet speaking, I will hear. This means that your desire already exists in the realm of fulfillment. Your job is not to create wealth. Your job is to recognize wealth that already is. Here's something that I need you to understand. Money is not a thing. Money is a symbol. It is a symbol of your consciousness of abundance. When you understand this, you realize that you don't need to chase money. You need to embody the consciousness from which money flows naturally. Think of it this way. A tree doesn't struggle to produce fruit. The fruit is the natural expression of the tree's nature. Similarly, wealth is the natural expression of a consciousness that recognizes its inherent abundance. And how do you develop this consciousness? Through the sacred practice of gratitude. Not gratitude as a technique, but gratitude as a way of being. But here's where most people stumble. They try to feel grateful for money while simultaneously worrying about bills. They try to imagine wealth while their inner dialogue screams of lack. This is like trying to plant a garden while simultaneously pouring salt on the soil. The transformation begins when you understand that gratitude is not about the external world. It's about your internal world. It's about recognizing that within you lies the infinite source from which all wealth springs. Now let me give you the practical steps to implement this sacred art in your daily life. Every morning, before your feet touch the floor, before the world intrudes upon your consciousness, spend 5 minutes in what I call gratitude awakening. Close your eyes and feel, don't think, feel grateful for the money that is flowing to you. Not money that might come, not money you hope will come, but money that is coming. Feel the relief, the joy, the security of knowing that your financial needs are met. Say to yourself, I am so grateful for the abundant flow of money in my life. I am so grateful for the multiple streams of income that sustain and enrich me. I am so grateful for the financial security that allows me to live with dignity and contribute to others. Feel these words. Let them penetrate your being until they become more real than the circumstances you see with your physical eyes. Remember, assumption is the mother of all miracles. When you assume something is true and persist in that assumption, the entire universe conspires to make it so. Your assumption of gratitude for wealth not yet seen is the invisible foundation upon which your visible wealth will be built. I've seen this principle work thousands of times. A woman assumes she is financially secure and feels grateful for that security. Within weeks, opportunities begin to appear. An unexpected inheritance, a promotion, a business opportunity. The forms are endless, but the principle is always the same. At midday, when the sun is at its highest and your energy is strong, practice what I call wealth recognition. Look around you and recognize wealth everywhere. The building you're in, Someone's wealth created it. The car you drive, wealth made it possible. The food you eat, wealth brought it to your table. But go deeper. Recognize that the same creative force that produced all this wealth is operating in you right now. Feel grateful not just for what you can see, but for the invisible wealth that is even now taking form in your experience. The evening practice is perhaps the most powerful of all. As you prepare for sleep, when your conscious mind begins to quiet and your subconscious mind becomes more receptive, this is when you plant the deepest seeds of wealth consciousness. Lie in your bed and enter into what I call gratitude communion. Review your day, not as it was, but as it could have been if you were already wealthy. Imagine paying bills with joy instead of stress. Imagine making purchases without hesitation. Imagine the feeling of security that comes from knowing you have more than enough. But here's the crucial point. Don't imagine these things as future events. Experience them as present realities. Feel grateful for them as if they have already happened. Now I must warn you, when you begin this practice, you will encounter resistance. Your rational mind will protest. It will say, "This is foolish. How can I be grateful for money I don't have?" When this happens, remember this. Your rational mind is not your creative mind. Your rational mind can only rearrange existing conditions. Your creative mind, your imagination can create entirely new conditions. The resistance you feel is simply the old patterns of consciousness defending themselves. Push through, persist. The breakthrough always comes to those who persist in your experience. Once a week, conduct what I call a wealth ceremony. Choose a day when you won't be interrupted. Sit quietly and imagine yourself 1 year from now living in complete financial abundance. See yourself writing checks without concern for your bank balance. See yourself helping others financially. See yourself living in the home you desire, driving the car you want, taking the vacations you dream of. But don't just see these things, feel grateful for them. Let your heart overflow with thanksgiving for the abundance that is yours. Here's a powerful technique that has produced remarkable results for many of my students. Write gratitude letters to the universe, to God, to your higher self, whatever feels right to you. Write as if you are already wealthy, expressing gratitude for your abundance. Dear universe, I am so grateful for the $50,000 that came to me this month. I am so grateful for the business opportunity that doubled my income. I am so grateful for the investment that paid such wonderful returns. Write these letters with the same feeling you would have if you were actually wealthy. Then either burn them as an offering to the infinite, or keep them as reminders of your assumption. But now I want to share with you the deeper mystery. Gratitude is not just a technique for attracting wealth. Gratitude is the recognition of your true nature. You are not a physical being trying to become spiritual. You are a spiritual being, temporarily housed in a physical form. As a spiritual being, you are connected to the infinite source of all good. Wealth is not something you acquire. It's something you recognize as your natural inheritance. When you feel grateful for wealth, you are not asking for something outside yourself. You are acknowledging what already exists within yourself. You are awakening to your true identity as a child of the infinite, heir to all that is. This is why the practice of gratitude is so transformative. It doesn't just change your external circumstances. It changes your consciousness. And a change in consciousness is a change in reality. When your consciousness is saturated with gratitude for abundance, you begin to see opportunities where others see obstacles. You begin to attract people who can help you. You begin to make decisions from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. Now, some of you might be thinking, Neville, this sounds too simple, too good to be true, but let me share with you the scientific foundation for what I'm teaching. Your brain cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. When you feel grateful for wealth with sufficient intensity and repetition, your brain begins to create new neural pathways. These pathways influence your behavior, your decisions, your very perception of reality. Moreover, gratitude literally changes your brain chemistry. It increases dopamine and serotonin, the neurotransmitters associated with happiness and well-being. When you feel good, you make better decisions. When you make better decisions, you create better results. Let me share another story with you. A woman came to me who was deeply in debt, working 3 jobs just to survive. I taught her the gratitude practices I'm sharing with you tonight. She began each day feeling grateful for financial freedom, even though her circumstances showed the opposite. After 3 months of consistent practice, she met a man at a coffee shop who offered her a position in his company. The salary was 3 times what she was making at her 3 jobs combined. Was this coincidence? I think not. Consciousness creates circumstances, and a consciousness filled with gratitude for abundance will inevitably attract abundant circumstances. Once a month, dedicate an entire day to what I call wealth gratitude intensive. From morning until night, maintain a continuous state of gratitude for your wealth. Speak as a wealthy person would speak. Walk as a wealthy person would walk. Make decisions as a wealthy person would make decisions. This intensive practice accelerates your transformation by saturating your consciousness with the feeling of wealth. Remember, feeling is the secret. Not positive thinking, not affirmations, but feeling. Here's an advanced practice for those who are serious about transformation. Once a week, undertake a gratitude fast. For 1 day, refuse to acknowledge any lack or limitation. Every time your mind turns to what you don't have, immediately shift to gratitude for what you do have. This practice trains your mind to default to abundance rather than scarcity. It's like reprogramming your mental computer to run on an abundance operating system instead of a scarcity operating system. But here's the deeper teaching that most people miss. The wealth you're seeking is not in your bank account. It's in your consciousness. When you truly understand this, you realize that you don't need to wait for money to feel wealthy. You can feel wealthy right now, regardless of your circumstances. And when you feel wealthy, really feel it, not just think it. You become a magnet for wealth. You start to vibrate at the frequency of abundance, and the universe responds to your vibration. Modern quantum physics has confirmed what I've been teaching for decades. Consciousness is the fundamental reality. Matter is simply consciousness expressing itself in physical form. When you change your consciousness, you change your reality. Your gratitude for wealth that doesn't yet exist in physical form is not wishful thinking. It's quantum mechanics in action. You are collapsing the wave function of infinite possibilities into the specific reality of your abundant life. As you continue these practices, you'll notice something remarkable happening. You'll begin to feel wealthy even when your bank account doesn't reflect it. You'll make decisions from abundance rather than scarcity. You'll carry yourself differently. You'll speak differently. You'll think differently. And here's the beautiful paradox. The moment you no longer need wealth to feel wealthy, wealth begins to flow to you effortlessly, because you've aligned your consciousness with the consciousness of abundance. My friends, I want you to begin tonight. Before you sleep, spend 10 minutes feeling grateful for the wealth that is even now flowing into your life. Don't wait for proof. Don't wait for evidence. Begin with faith, and let your faith be rewarded with experience. Remember, the universe is not only queerer than we suppose, it is queerer than we can suppose. The principles I've shared with you tonight are not just theories. They are practical, proven methods for transforming your financial reality. Your wealth is not coming to you. It is flowing through you. You are not separate from abundance. You are abundance in human form. Your gratitude is not hope for the future. It is recognition of the present. Start tonight. Start now. Your wealthy life is waiting for your recognition. And when you truly recognize it, when you truly feel grateful for it, it will have no choice but to manifest in your experience. The kingdom of heaven, which is the kingdom of abundance, is within you. Claim it with gratitude, and watch as your outer world transforms to match your inner recognition. This is the promise. This is the truth. This is the way. Go forth and prosper, knowing that your prosperity is not just for you, but for all those whose lives you will touch with your abundance. Thank you, and may your gratitude be the bridge between your current reality and your wealthy destiny.
My dear friend, I need you to hear this, because what I'm about to tell you will change everything if you let it. You've been living a lie, not intentionally, but you've been conditioned to believe that your dreams exist somewhere out there, in some distant future, behind some mysterious door that you haven't found the key to yet. You wake up every morning as the person who wants something, instead of waking up as the person who has it. And that, my friend, is why you're stuck. You are living in the prison of how. Every single day, you torture yourself with the same question. How is this going to happen? You lie awake at night, your mind racing through scenarios, timelines, and possibilities. You've become a detective investigating your own life, searching for clues about when your breakthrough will come. But here's what nobody told you. The moment you ask how, you've already declared that it hasn't happened yet. You've just voted for your own delay. Think about it. When you have breakfast in the morning, do you wonder how you're going to eat it? When you get dressed, do you analyze the process of putting on your clothes? Of course not. These things are natural to you because you are someone who eats breakfast and gets dressed. There's no gap between who you are and what you do. But with your dreams, you've created this massive chasm. You stand on one side as the wanting person, staring across at your desire like it's some foreign country you might never visit. You've turned your desire into a math problem to solve instead of a reality to inhabit. You calculate probabilities, analyze market conditions, study other people's success stories, thinking that if you just gather enough data, you'll crack the code. But creation doesn't happen through calculation, it happens through conviction. Every time you wonder when will it happen, you're broadcasting to the universe that it hasn't happened yet. Every time you ask what if it doesn't work, you're investing energy in the very outcome you don't want. You're like someone planting a garden while simultaneously watering the weeds. Here's the truth that will set you free. You don't get what you want, you get who you are. Every morning, you have a choice. You can wake up as the person who's trying to become successful, or you can wake up as someone who is successful and simply hasn't seen all the evidence yet. You can spend your day as someone who hopes to find love, or you can move through the world as someone who is loved and worthy of love. The difference isn't just philosophical, it's everything. When you truly embody the person who already has what you desire, something magical happens. You stop hunting for signs. You stop refreshing your phone looking for the universe's approval. You stop asking your friends if they think it's going to work out. Why? Because people who have what they want don't question whether they have it. But here's where most people stumble. They try to become the new person while still carrying the old person's baggage. They put on the mask of confidence while their inner dialogue still sounds like doubt. They act successful during the day, but worry themselves to sleep at night. You can't upgrade your life while downgrading your identity. You can't manifest from the state of lack while pretending to feel abundant. The universe responds to your authentic vibration, not your performance. Let me paint you a picture of what you've been doing, and it might sting a little, but stay with me. You wake up every morning and immediately check, not your phone, not the weather, but the state of your desire. Is it here yet? Has anything changed? Any signs? Any movement? And when you don't see what you're looking for, you feel that familiar knot in your stomach, the anxiety of absence. You've become addicted to monitoring your manifestation like it's a stock ticker. Up, down, hopeful, disappointed. You refresh your reality like a browser that won't load fast enough, constantly asking, is it here yet? But every time you ask, you're acknowledging that it isn't. And so the delay continues. You've trained yourself to live in the gap, that space between wanting and having, and you've gotten so comfortable there that you don't even realize you're choosing to stay there. You've made that gap your home address. But what if I told you that gap is an illusion? What if the only thing standing between you and your dreams is your belief that there's something standing between you and your dream? You fall into another trap too, comparing your journey to others. You see someone else's success and immediately start dissecting their path, trying to reverse engineer their formula. You study their timeline, their strategies, their backgrounds, thinking you can copy-paste their blueprint onto your life. But every path is unique because every consciousness is unique. When you try to recreate someone else's steps, you're telling your own desire it needs to arrive wearing someone else's costume, through someone else's door. You become so focused on method that you abandon your own inner power. You forget that the version of you who has your desire already exists. And that version doesn't copy or chase. They live with assurance. They know it's done. They walk with quiet boldness because nothing is missing. You watch other people's manifestations unfold and treat their outcomes as evidence that the process works, while simultaneously treating your own timeline as evidence that it doesn't work for you. You give everyone else permission to succeed while withholding that same permission from yourself. You've been brainwashed into believing that time is the enemy of your dreams, that you need more time for things to unfold, that you need to wait for the right moment, that your desires require a specific timeline to manifest. But time isn't linear when it comes to creation. You don't have to wait for your dreams to unfold in some logical sequence. You can collapse time by collapsing the gap between who you are and who you're becoming. You think you need months or years to become successful, but what if you could become successful right now? What if the only thing keeping you from that identity is your belief that it takes time? The version of you who has everything you want doesn't live in the future. They exist right now, in this moment, in the realm of infinite possibility. The only reason they seem future to you is because you haven't aligned with them yet. When you truly live in the end, when you actually feel, think, and act from the place of already having what you want, something incredible happens. The universe begins to rearrange itself around your new identity. Opportunities appear. People show up. Doors open. Not because you're forcing them to, but because that's what naturally happens in the reality where you already have what you want. See? The mirror doesn't lie. Your external world is nothing more than a mirror reflecting your internal reality back to you. If you don't like what you see in the mirror, you don't try to change the mirror, you change what you're reflecting. But most people spend their entire lives trying to rearrange the mirror. They push, they pull, they strategize, they manipulate circumstances, thinking that if they can just get the outside world to shift first, then they'll finally feel successful, loved, or fulfilled. It doesn't work that way. It never has, and it never will. The world isn't happening to you. It's happening through you. You are not a victim of circumstances. You are the author of them. Every single thing in your life right now is there because some version of you called it in. Whether consciously or unconsciously, that might be hard to hear, but it's also incredibly empowering. If you created your current reality, then you have the power to create a different one. You keep wiping the mirror instead of changing your face. You keep trying to fix the projection instead of adjusting the project. You believe that movement must be seen to be real, forgetting that all true movement begins invisibly within. Let me tell you about assumption, not the kind where you assume things about other people, but the kind where you assume things about yourself and your life. Assumption is the most powerful creative force in the universe. When you assume something is true about yourself, when you really feel it and embody it, reality has no choice but to conform to that assumption. But here's where most people mess it up. They assume for about 5 minutes, then spend the next 5 hours wondering if their assumption is working. They put on the crown of their desired self, then immediately take it off to examine it. True assumption isn't something you do, it's something you become. It's not a technique you practice, it's an identity you wear. And once you put it on, you don't take it off to see if it's working. You just live from it. You try to fake the feeling, mimic the thoughts, repeat the phrases, but you don't allow yourself to actually embody it because you're waiting for the world to shift first. But it never does, not until you do. Assumption isn't hope for the best, it's knowing you are the best version of yourself now. It's not waiting for things to align, it's knowing they already have in the unseen realm. You've become addicted to strategy, thinking that the right plan will guarantee your success. You make lists, rehearse possibilities, calculate probabilities, all from the standpoint of someone who does not yet have what they want. You collect techniques like someone hoarding supplies for an apocalypse that will never come. You jump from method to method, always looking for the better way, the faster way, the right way, not realizing that you are not manifesting from the state of the wish fulfilled but from the anxiety of lack. You believe that the more you understand the path, the quicker it will arrive, but understanding is not the gateway. Acceptance is. You ask the same questions over and over. What do I need to do? How long will it take? Is this the right technique? And in those questions, you reveal your disbelief. You're not living in the end, you're living in evaluation. You're not surrendering to the outcome, you're auditing the process. You sabotage the ease of the unfolding by turning it into a task to be completed rather than an identity to be assumed. You confuse movement with progress and effort with power. You chase signs, look for synchronicities, scroll for proof, but all you're doing is feeding the illusion that something still needs to happen. You've become a chronic analyst, thinking your way around what can only be felt. You turn every moment into data to be processed, every experience into evidence to be evaluated. You've made yourself a victim of your own intellect. But manifestation is not analysis, it's assumption. It's not how it comes, it's who you are. You're waiting for something to click outside when the click happens inside. It's the shift from asking to knowing, from hoping to being, from waiting to receiving. You've gotten so good at pretending you don't have what you want that you've forgotten how natural it is to live as if you do. You build stories around your limitations, defend your delays, justify your doubts, and then wonder why your desires feel so far away. You've practiced lack longer than you've practiced fulfillment. You wake up expecting your dreams not to be here, and that expectation becomes your daily prayer. You keep calling in absence with every thought of effort, every glance at the clock, every calculation of when and how. So what to do? First, you need to understand the surrender paradox. Here's something that will blow your mind. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means giving in. It means choosing once and living from that choice. It's not about repetition. It's about dwelling. You don't need to keep reminding yourself if you've truly assumed it. You only remind yourself when part of you still isn't sure. You don't need more affirmations if you truly believe. You only need affirmations when you're trying to convince yourself of something you don't yet feel. Real surrender is not indifference. It's the deepest kind of knowing. When you fully detach from the how, it's not because you don't care, but because it's already yours. You no longer ask how, because there is nothing more to ask. You've arrived, and arrival ends the questioning. But you keep asking, how do I detach from the how? And even that question reveals that you're still looking for steps instead of becoming the person for whom it's already normal. You think letting go means ignoring the desire, but it means ignoring the doubt. It means seeing the desire as already fulfilled and then living from that reality with quiet confidence. You need to stop rehearsing and start living from your desire. You've been living your life in rehearsal mode, always preparing, never performing, always getting ready to be the person you want to be, instead of just being them. You rehearse conversations you'll have when you're successful. You imagine how you'll feel when you meet your soulmate. You visualize what life will be like when you're finally happy. But rehearsal is not living. And the person you want to become isn't waiting for some future moment to arrive. They're available to you right now, in this moment. What would the successful version of you do today? How would they walk? How would they talk to themselves? What decisions would they make? What would they worry about? And more importantly, what wouldn't they worry about? You keep thinking the bridge must look a certain way, but that's not your job. Your job is to walk through the day with the calmness of someone who no longer wants because they already are. Stop practicing being that person. Start being that person. The waiting game must end now. You've been waiting for permission. Permission from the world, permission from other people, permission from the universe to finally claim what's yours. But nobody's coming to give you that permission. The only person who can authorize your transformation is you. You don't need more time. You don't need better circumstances. You don't need more knowledge or more resources or more connections. You need to stop waiting and start claiming. The version of you who has everything you want already exists. They're not some future possibility. They're a present reality that you can step into right now, today, this moment. But you have to choose them. Not tomorrow, not when things get better, not when you feel more confident. Now, you keep waiting for proof, but your world can only reflect what you already embody. You may have vivid imaginations, beautiful inner scenes, detailed visualizations, but if you leave those scenes and immediately start asking how it will unfold, you're not truly dwelling there. You leave the creative act half finished by looking over your shoulder, checking if the outer world has caught up yet. But the world doesn't move first, you do. Here's something profound. Your dreams aren't in the future. They exist right now, in this moment, in the realm of infinite possibility. The only reason they seem future to you is because you haven't aligned with the version of yourself who lives in that reality. You think the world has to show you something before you can feel it. But it's the feeling that causes the world to shift. You don't need evidence. You need embodiment. You don't need to figure it out. You need to become it. The version of you who has what you want doesn't think about how, they just live from the certainty that it's already theirs. They don't rehearse scenarios. They respond to life as if it's already done. They don't try to bridge the gap. They live as if there is no gap. They don't check the mirror for signs of change. They carry the change inside them. They don't ask when it's coming. They know it's here. They don't try to make it happen. They assume it's happening through them naturally, easily, inevitably. It takes courage to be the person you want to become before the world validates that choice. It takes courage to feel successful when your bank account doesn't reflect it yet. It takes courage to feel loved when you're still single. It takes courage to feel confident when you're still scared. But that courage, that willingness to be who you really are before the world catches up, is the price of admission to the life you truly want. Most people never pay this price. They wait for external validation before they'll internally validate themselves. They want the world to change before they change their inner world. But you're not most people. You wouldn't be here if you were content with mediocrity. You have dreams that demand more of you. You have a vision that requires you to become someone new. You get stuck because you're living with one foot in desire and one foot in doubt, and so the universe responds to that divided signal. You say you want it, but you're constantly telling the story of why it hasn't come. You say it's yours, but then wonder who will give it to you. You act as if you're certain, but then wake up checking for signs. You feel like you're doing something wrong, But the only mistake is not fully stepping into the end. You think you become deserving by doing more, by knowing more, by working harder. But you become deserving by remembering that you always were, by embodying the version of yourself who never questions worthiness. You measure your worthiness by results instead of alignment, and you anchor yourself in hope instead of faith. You confuse movement with progress and effort with power. The desire was never a reward for effort. It was always an extension of identity. You don't need to earn what's already yours. You don't need to chase what's already within you. You don't need to prove what's already true. You think the details will give you control, but it's the surrender to the end that gives you power. You think if you figure out the how, you'll feel calm, but true calm comes from deciding that it's already done. You need to make the decision that changes everything. Right now, in this moment, you have a decision to make. You can continue living as the person who wants, hopes, and wishes for a better life, or you can step into the identity of the person who already has that life. This isn't about positive thinking or wishful imagination. This is about a fundamental shift in who you know yourself to be. When you make this shift, really make it, not just intellectually, but emotionally, energetically, everything changes. The questions that used to torment you become irrelevant. The timeline that used to stress you becomes meaningless. The how that used to consume you becomes background noise. Because when you truly embody the end result, the middle takes care of itself. You're not stuck because the universe is holding back. You're stuck because you keep touching the desire only to pull it away with questions. You keep stepping into the end only to leave when doubt knocks. You keep revisiting the desire instead of remaining in its fulfillment. But nothing is wrong. You haven't failed. You simply need to stop dancing with the how. You simply need to sit down in the throne of your desire and wear it like a second skin. When you truly understand that your outer world is a mirror of your inner state, you stop trying to force the mirror to change. You adjust what you're reflecting. You stop wrestling with the projection and focus on the projector. You realize that if you are embodying the state of the fulfilled desire, then it must outpicture itself because it has no choice. That's not arrogance, that's alignment. You stop needing to justify your desire, stop needing to explain your vision, stop needing to convince anyone, even yourself, that it's possible. Possibility doesn't matter when it's already done. Logic doesn't matter when you're living from the end. Evidence doesn't matter when your imagination is already providing it. You no longer argue with what is, you create what is. You no longer seek permission from the world, you give it permission to conform to your new self. The how feels important when you don't yet believe you can have what you want. The how feels urgent when you're still anchored in the old self. The how feels like a lifeline when your inner state isn't stable yet. But once you've assumed the end fully, the how becomes background noise. It becomes a non-issue. It unfolds on its own, often in ways you couldn't have predicted even if you'd tried. And you stop caring about prediction because you trust the unfolding. Your new reality starts now. I'm not asking you to believe in magic. I'm asking you to believe in yourself. I'm asking you to believe that the version of you who has everything you want isn't some impossible fantasy. They're who you really are underneath all the conditioning, all the fear, all the limiting belief. That person has been waiting for you to remember them, to claim them, to become them. They've been patient, but they're tired of waiting. You don't get what you want, you get who you are. You're not building a bridge, you are the bridge. And when you truly become the version who no longer waits, the waiting ends. When you no longer look for the how finds you. And it always does, beautifully, perfectly, effortlessly, once you stop needing it. Today is the day you stop asking how and start being who. Today is the day you stop living in the gap and start living in the truth. Today is the day you remember that you are not the person who wants, you are the person who has. Your dreams aren't coming, they're here. Your success isn't approaching, it's arrived. Your love isn't on the way, it's present. Walk through your day as if it's already done. Not because you're faking it, but because that's who you are now. You don't need more tools, more clues, more steps. You need more trust, not blind faith, but conscious, intentional assumption. You keep asking, what am I missing? And the answer is always the same. You're missing nothing except full identification with the version of you who has already arrived. The how is the illusion. It dissolves the moment you no longer need it. You want the path to light up, but the light comes on after you step, not before. Manifestation isn't like following instructions. It's like stepping into a role you were born for. You don't need to earn it. You need to wear it. You don't need to chase it. You need to claim it. When you keep circling the how, you're avoiding the real work, which is being the end now, despite appearances, despite doubts, despite silence from the world. That's power. That's the energy that bends reality. That's the energy that dissolves every need for the how. The choice is yours. The power is yours. The moment is now. Stop chasing tomorrow. Start living today. Stop being who you were. Start being who you are. Your new reality is waiting for you to claim it. What are you waiting for?
My friends, I want to share with you tonight a truth so profound, so revolutionary, that it will shatter everything you think you know about money. Listen carefully, for what I am about to reveal has the power to transform your entire relationship with abundance. Every time you touch money, you speak even if your mouth is silent. Every time you hold it, pass it, count it, spend it, receive it, your entire being issues a command to the creative forces of the universe. Your assumption declares what shall be. The world has lied to you, my dear friends. They have told you that money is neutral, that it is separate from spirit, that it is a tool to be used and feared in equal measure. But I tell you, with all the conviction of one who has witnessed this truth in countless lives, money is not a dead thing. It is alive. It is consciousness made visible. Money is a servant of the law of assumption, and it listens with perfect obedience to the tone of your heart and the rhythm of your inner conversations. Most people touch money in fear. They hold it with hesitation. They count it with tension. They spend it with dread. They say, I can't afford that, and wonder why money flees from them. They say, money doesn't come easily, and wonder why their purse remains empty. They speak lack while holding supply. They declare emptiness, while touching proof of the infinite abundance that is their birthright. And then they wonder why it does not multiply. But listen to this carefully. Money does not respond to effort. It responds to assumption, to feeling, to the state of consciousness you occupy. You must now treat every money moment as sacred. Every bill you hold, every coin you find, every transaction you enter. These are not mundane acts. These are opportunities for the most profound spiritual demonstration. The moment you touch money, you are standing at the altar of creation. Your assumption in that moment either multiplies or diminishes your future. Your feeling either opens or closes the channels of abundance. Do not let another dollar pass through your hands without recognizing its true nature, without commanding it from the state of abundance, without speaking the truth over it from the feeling of already having received. I say this plainly, if you are not assuming increase when you handle money, you are silently permitting loss. Because in the realm of consciousness, there is no neutral state. When you assume nothing, the world assumes for you, and the world's assumption is always lack, limitation, and fear. But when you assume abundance, when you feel wealthy, when you live in the state of already having received, then money must obey. Not because of magic, but because of the immutable law of consciousness. Let your new assumption begin today. Every time you touch money, no matter the amount, you will enter a state. Not just say words, but feel the reality of what you are assuming. You will occupy the state of one who recognizes money as divine substance. When you handle money, assume this. Divine substance cannot be depleted. I recognize this money as spiritual reality made visible, and I see it multiply under grace, in perfect ways. You must not speak as one who hopes. You must feel as one who knows, because consciousness does not respond to begging. It responds to the assumption of already having received. Money is not dirty, my friends. It is not evil. It is not carnal. That is the world's doctrine, not the truth of consciousness. The great deception is this, that money belongs to man, that it is created by governments, that it is earned by toil, and lost by circumstance. But I declare to you boldly, money is God's invisible supply made visible. It is divine substance, taking form according to your assumption. It is the formless becoming form in response to your dominant mental state. There is no conflict between money and spirit, only between ignorance and truth, between the assumption of lack and the assumption of abundance. The same consciousness that gives you life gives you sustenance. The same source that breathed you into being holds nothing back from your every need. When you separate money from the divine, you strip it of its power to multiply. But when you recognize it as consciousness made visible, you allow it to flow, to increase, to serve your every good. The issue is never the money itself. It is always the state of consciousness that handles it. Do not treat money as common. Do not approach it with fear, with guilt, or with disdain. Do not say, "It's just a dollar." Do not say, "I hate dealing with money." Do not mock the instrument of your good. What you assume to be worthless cannot stay. What you feel resistant about cannot flow freely. What you resent in consciousness, you repel in experience. But what you recognize as divine, you multiply. What you assume to be abundant, you attract. What you feel grateful for returns with increase. Money is spiritual substance. It is a medium of exchange, yes, but it is also a mirror, reflecting your deepest assumptions about abundance. If you assume lack, it disappears. If you feel guilty about having it, it withholds itself. But if you recognize it as divine substance, if you feel it as a child of infinite abundance, it will flow toward you in ever-increasing waves. Never again assume money is hard to come by. Instead, live in the feeling of this truth. God is my instant, constant, and lavish supply. Large sums of money come to me quickly under grace in perfect ways. This is not mere poetry, my friends. This is the law of consciousness in operation. When you assume this with feeling, when you live in this state with conviction, it becomes your reality. It does not matter how much money you have now. What matters is the state you occupy when you think about money. Money is like water. It flows where it is welcomed with the feeling of abundance. It evaporates where it is cursed with the assumption of lack. You must become a sacred channel through which divine substance flows freely, not hoarded in fear, not clutched in desperation, but recognized and blessed from the state of already having received. Bless every dollar that enters your experience. Feel grateful for every coin you find. Assume abundance with every payment you make. And as you do, say from the depths of your being, this money is divine substance. It cannot be depleted. It flows to me and through me under grace and multiplies as it moves. You will discover that what once seemed to escape you now remains. What once appeared delayed now arrives swiftly. What once seemed hidden now reveals itself abundantly, not because the money has changed, but because you have changed. And as your assumption shifts, so must your world. This is not theory, my dear friends. This is not mysticism for its own sake. This is spiritual law in operation. Whatever you assume with feeling multiplies in your experience. This law works with mathematical precision. It does not matter what the world economy appears to be. It does not matter what your bank account seems to show. The moment you assume abundance with genuine feeling, without internal contradiction, you open the floodgates of divine increase. The law of multiplication is embedded in the very fabric of creation. The seed multiplies when planted in fertile soil. The loaves and fishes multiplied when blessed with gratitude. The talents multiplied when invested with faith. It is consciousness delighting to express itself as abundance. But that abundance cannot enter a heart that assumes scarcity as its natural state. Most people hold their last dollar in fear. They clutch it and say, "I must hold on, or I'll have nothing." But I say to you, assume abundance with that dollar. Feel wealthy with that dollar. Recognize it as divine substance containing the spiritual pattern of millions. Let me share with you the story of a woman who had only $2 remaining. The world would have called her destitute, but she held those dollars in her hands and assumed this reality. This is God's money. It is spiritual substance. It cannot be diminished because God cannot be diminished. I feel it multiplying now under grace in perfect ways. Within 1 week, $6,000 had come to her through a channel she had never imagined. Did her assumption create the money? No. Her assumption of abundance allowed her to receive what was already hers in consciousness. You see, the money is never absent. It is only out of harmony with your assumption. Your feeling is your tuning fork. Your assumption is your point of attraction. Your recognition of abundance is your invitation to receive. Stop asking where the money will come from. Instead, assume from the feeling, money is here. Money is ready. Money now multiplies under grace. in perfect ways. Feel this not as a hope for the future, but as a present reality. The loaves and fishes were not multiplied through worry about supply. They were not multiplied through calculating the need. They were multiplied through the assumption of abundance, looking up with gratitude, giving thanks, and then proceeding from the state of already having received. You too must approach what you have, not with the assumption of insufficiency, but with the feeling of abundance. Take what you have, and assume this reality. I recognize this money as divine substance. I feel grateful for its presence. I assume its multiplication now, pressed down, shaken together, and overflowing. Now I give you an assumption, not as a magic formula, not as empty words, but as a divine recognition of truth. This is a declaration to consciousness, a command to the creative forces within you. You are not saying it to convince God. You are not saying it to test the law. You are assuming it because you now understand that money responds to the feeling of abundance. Assume this every time you touch money. Divine substance cannot be depleted. I recognize this money as spiritual reality and feel it multiply under grace in perfect ways. Say it when you receive payment. Assume it when you pay bills. Feel it when you make purchases, when you give tips, when you transfer funds, when you count your money, when you make donations. Assume it with the breath of certainty. Feel it slowly, deeply. Assume it like a king recognizing his treasury, like a priest blessing a sacred offering, because that is exactly what you are doing. You are blessing your relationship with abundance. You are commanding multiplication, not through effort, but through recognition. The law of consciousness hears your assumption. The universe responds to your feeling. You do not need to know the channel through which increase will come. You do not need to calculate the mechanism. Your assumption is not about logic. It is about the feeling of already having received. When you assume abundance, you shift your entire vibrational state. When you feel wealthy, you rise above the assumption of lack. When you recognize money as divine substance, you align with the infinite storehouse that is always full. Let your relationship with money be transformed. You no longer touch it with dread. You no longer feel shame when you spend. You no longer shrink when you give. You no longer fear when you look at your accounts. You assume abundance, and the assumption governs the result. Money must multiply where it is recognized as divine substance. This is law, not because of your personal power, but because of the infinite creative force expressing itself through your assumption. You are not the source, you are the channel. You are the one who assumes, and the one who assumes abundance from the feeling of already having received plenty. You must understand this with absolute clarity. If money continues to elude you, it is not because money is unfaithful. It is because your assumption has been one of lack, and consciousness has faithfully reproduced your assumption as your experience. Every idle assumption you make about your financial situation becomes a command to the creative forces within you. Every time you assume, I can't afford that, or money goes out faster than it comes in, or I'm always struggling financially, you are not describing a condition, you are creating one. Consciousness does not analyze your intent. It does not consider your mood. It simply responds to your assumption with mathematical precision. Your subconscious mind hears your every mental declaration and moves to make your assumption your reality. You may think these assumptions casually, habitually, without much attention, but consciousness receives them as absolute instructions and proceeds to fulfill them with perfect fidelity. So I ask you, what have you been assuming about your money? What have you been feeling when paying bills? What have you been thinking when looking at your accounts? What have you been assuming in conversations about your financial situation? Every assumption is a seed in consciousness, and every seed brings forth after its kind. It is time to assume differently. It is time to feel abundance where you once felt lack. It is time to recognize divine substance where you once saw limitation. Assume this when you handle your finances. I do not operate from lack. I assume abundance as my natural state. Money flows to me freely because I recognize it as divine substance. This is not denial of present circumstances. This is recognition of the creative power within you. The reality that forms next will be the one that corresponds to your most dominant assumption. Every time you part with money, you are declaring what you assume about infinite supply. Most people assume they are being diminished when they pay. They feel they are losing something precious. But I tell you the truth. You are not spending money. You are circulating divine substance. What you release with the feeling of abundance returns to you multiplied, because you have assumed the law of increase to be operating in your experience. Payment is not depletion. It is a spiritual transaction. It is proof that you assume the source of all good will replenish what you have released. Never again feel fear when making payments. Never again assume loss when bills arrive. These reactions are assumptions of lack, and consciousness, hearing your assumption, responds not with increase but with more of what you have assumed. You must now handle money as a priest handles sacred vessels, with reverence, with recognition, with the feeling of abundance. When you pay for anything, assume this reality. I release this with joy, knowing that what I give in the feeling of abundance returns to me multiplied and overflowing. This is not wishful thinking. This is the mathematics of consciousness. What you assume with genuine feeling always returns with increase. What you release in the recognition of abundance creates immediate pathways for more. Payment becomes proof of circulation, and circulation is the law of consciousness made manifest. You were never meant to hoard in fear, to clutch in desperation, to assume scarcity. You were meant to assume abundance, to feel wealthy, to command the flow of divine substance. When bills arrive, assume this. This is not a burden. This is proof that I am trusted with divine substance. I send it forth with gratitude, and it returns to me tenfold. Now your bills are no longer sources of fear. They become opportunities to demonstrate your assumption of abundance. When you pay from the feeling of wealth, you transform apparent obligations into channels of increase. Your rent becomes a declaration of abundance. Your utilities become affirmations of supply. Your expenses become investments in the law of circulation. Feel grateful for your outgoing with the same intensity you feel grateful for your incoming, because it is all one flow, all one assumption made manifest. Every visible demonstration of wealth begins with an invisible assumption. There is no exception to this law. Your riches do not begin in the bank account. They do not begin in the job, the business, or the investment. They begin in consciousness. They begin with what you assume before they appear. Most people wait to feel abundant until they see abundance. But that is not how consciousness works. Consciousness is cause, not effect. The feeling of abundance is the cause. The visible wealth is the effect. I have witnessed this truth countless times. I knew a woman who had nothing visible to justify optimism. No money in sight, no opportunities apparent, no doors opening. But she had learned the law of assumption. She would sit quietly and assume this reality. I see abundance surrounding me. I feel wealthy now. I assume that large sums of money are flowing to me in perfect ways. She would actually visualize specific amounts, feel the reality of receiving them, live in the assumption of already having them. Before any physical evidence appeared, she was living in the state of abundance. And because consciousness must externalize what you assume with feeling, her assumption became her reality. Do not wait until you have proof to assume abundance. Assume abundance, and the proof will follow. Do not say, I'll feel wealthy when I see the money. That is the assumption of lack disguised as practicality. Instead, assume, I feel wealthy now, and my wealth is becoming visible because I have assumed it to be so. Your world is nothing but the externalization of your most dominant assumptions. Scripture reveals this pattern. God calleth those things which be not as though they were. This is the divine method. Not describing the seen, but assuming the unseen. Not waiting for abundance to appear, but creating it through assumption, and living in that assumption until it becomes visible. Your assumption is your spiritual mold. When you assume wealth with genuine feeling, your subconscious mind accepts the pattern and begins to arrange circumstances to match your assumption. So assume it before it appears. Feel it while your wallet seems empty. Live in it while your account appears insufficient. Assume not to convince yourself, but to instruct consciousness. And consciousness, once instructed through feeling, begins to gather all necessary elements to fulfill your assumption. Assume this now. I see riches surrounding me. I walk in financial abundance every day. My supply multiplies both visibly and invisibly. Feel it again tomorrow, and again the next day, until your inner world accepts it as fact, and your outer world can no longer resist its manifestation. Do not jest about money. Do not mock your supply. Do not make yourself the object of poverty jokes and expect wealth to honor you. This is not superstition. This is the law of consciousness in operation. Your subconscious mind has no sense of humor about your assumptions. It records every feeling, every assumption, every inner conversation as absolute instruction. It does not distinguish between what you assume seriously and what you assume jokingly. I remember a woman who repeatedly assumed, "One day I'll be living in a cardboard box." She laughed when she said it. Others laughed with her, but her subconscious mind was not laughing. It was accepting her assumption as her desired reality and arranging circumstances to fulfill it. Soon enough, that was exactly her situation. Not because she lacked ability or opportunity, but because she had assumed her own limitation and consciousness had faithfully reproduced her assumption. You must understand, there is no such thing as a neutral assumption. There are only assumptions that align with abundance and assumptions that align with lack. When you joke about being poor, your subconscious mind assumes poverty to be your desired state. When you mock the wealthy, your consciousness ensures you never become one. When you laugh at your own financial struggles, you extend your season of difficulty. Words and assumptions are not toys. They are tools of creation. They are sacred instruments of consciousness. Use them with reverence. Use them with intention. Use them only to assume what you truly desire to experience. If you have assumed foolishly about your finances, you can change your assumption now. Feel this reality. Every limiting assumption I have made about money is now cancelled, reversed, and replaced by the assumption of abundance. Then replace every assumption of lack with the assumption of abundance. Replace every feeling of scarcity with the feeling of wealth. Replace every inner conversation about limitation with inner conversations about infinite supply. Say this instead: I assume only increase. I feel only abundance. I recognize only divine provision. Let your assumptions become your wealth, and let your inner conversations become your outer circumstances. If you would see wealth appear in your outer world, you must first assume it in your inner world. This is the formula of all manifestation, the divine architecture that governs all creation. First comes the assumption, then the feeling, then the visible manifestation. All things first exist in consciousness, then are sealed through feeling, then formed in the world of experience. This is the rhythm of divine demonstration, and it cannot be bypassed, rushed, or replaced by effort, logic, or luck alone. You must become the architect of your abundance. You must enter the sanctuary of your consciousness and build not with struggle, but with assumption, not with worry, but with the feeling of already having received. You must see your wealth before the world can see it. You must feel your abundance before the world confirms it. Consciousness waits for leadership, and your leadership begins with assumption backed by feeling. Let this become your daily practice. Close your eyes and assume your wealth, not in fantasy, not in desperation, but in the recognition of truth. See yourself abundant. Feel yourself financially free. Assume your bills are paid. Your accounts are full. Your giving is generous. Do not concern yourself with the mechanism. That is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to assume the end result and feel it as already accomplished. Then assume what you have visualized. Declare it with feeling. Even if your present circumstances seem to contradict it. Even if your bank account appears to mock it. Even if the world calls you delusional, assume it anyway. Assume, I see my wealth. I feel my abundance. I recognize my infinite supply. What I assume with feeling must now appear under grace and in perfect timing. Walk as one who has already received, and stop begging consciousness for what you want. Start assuming you already have it, and let your entire being move in harmony with your assumption. Stand with the posture of abundance, speak with the voice of wealth, and move with the confidence of one who knows their supply is infinite. These are not pretenses. They are the natural expressions of your assumption made manifest. There are two moments of extraordinary power in every day: the moment before sleep and the moment of awakening. These are the sacred windows when your subconscious mind is most receptive to new assumptions. What you assume during these moments does not simply pass away. It plants itself deeply in the fertile soil of your subconscious and governs everything that follows. So I instruct you, assume abundance at night and assume abundance in the morning, not as routine, but as recognition of law. Consciousness responds to rhythm, to consistency, to the repeated assumption of your desired reality. Before you close your eyes at night, assume this: I now rest in the assumption of abundance. I see wealth surrounding me. Every dollar I touch is blessed and multiplied. I sleep in the feeling of financial freedom. Let this assumption be the last vibration your consciousness remembers. Let it echo through your subconscious mind while you sleep. Let your dream state be governed by abundance, not by fear. While you sleep, the assumption takes root. While you rest, your subconscious mind rearranges your inner world to match your assumption. And while you dream, consciousness moves unseen forces into alignment with your feeling of abundance. When morning comes, do not immediately engage with the world's assumptions about money. Do not check your phone, your email, your news, until you have first renewed your assumption of abundance. Greet your supply. Welcome the invisible wealth that is now moving toward you. Assume the same reality again with fresh feeling and renewed conviction. I wake in the assumption of abundance. I see wealth surrounding me. Every dollar I touch returns to me blessed and multiplied. I walk in financial freedom today. Touch your wallet, touch your purse, and recognize them not as mere objects, but as symbols of your assumption made manifest. There is one barrier more dangerous than doubt, more persistent than fear, more hidden than any obvious obstacle. It is guilt about wealth, guilt about wanting abundance, guilt about receiving while others appear to lack. This invisible thief of demonstration must be removed. For even when you assume correctly and feel genuinely, guilt in your heart will reject what your consciousness has accepted. You must cleanse yourself of every false belief that suggests you are unworthy of wealth, that wanting money is selfish, that having abundance is wrong. These are not spiritual truths. They are human interpretations of limitation wrapped in the disguise of morality. The truth is this: your wealth serves the highest good when you receive it through the recognition of abundance. Consciousness is not offended by your overflow. The infinite is not diminished by your plenty. Divine substance is not reduced by your abundance. When you assume wealth, you do not take from others. You simply align with abundance more quickly. You become a living demonstration that the law of assumption works. You become proof that consciousness can transform any circumstance. Feel this truth. It is right for me to assume abundance. I use money in love, and money flows to me in peace. The law of assumption never fails. It is not partial to some and not to others. It is not delayed by circumstances, economics, or opinions. It does not consider how long you have struggled or how many times you have failed. It responds to the assumption of abundance declared with feeling, backed by faith, and maintained with consistency. When you assume rightly and do not contradict your assumption, consciousness must fulfill it. Assume this with complete conviction. The law never fails. I assume my abundant supply, and it must appear under grace and in perfect ways. Let this become your unwavering assumption. Do not question how it will happen. Do not watch for immediate evidence. Simply assume and maintain your assumption until it becomes your reality. Because when you assume abundance with genuine feeling, the law of consciousness ensures that your assumption becomes your experience. And so it is, and so it shall be. Stop everything. What I'm about to tell you will either change your life forever, or you'll dismiss it as impossible. A man with nothing but debt discovered this one truth, and exactly 30 days later, he received a call that made him a millionaire. No hustle, no grind, just one shift in consciousness. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to do the same, and I'll give you the exact technique he used. You will be a millionaire in 1 month. Not because of effort, not because of hustle, not because of anything the world teaches, but because you will awaken to the truth. Imagination creates reality. The moment you accept this as fact, not as theory, your life begins to unfold in accordance with your assumptions. The riches you desire, the lifestyle you long for, the security you dream of, they are not out there. They are within you, awaiting your command. But here's where 99% of people fail, and why you won't if you keep watching. In exactly 1 month, if you dare to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you will watch the outer world bend to your inner world. Do not ask how, that is the fatal error. To ask how is to admit you do not yet believe. The how belongs to God, to the deeper dimension of yourself. Your task is not to figure out the bridge of incidents that will lead to your millions. Your task is to accept the end, live in the end, feel the reality of already having what you want. For that which you accept as true of yourself, though denied by the senses, if persisted in, will harden into fact. This is not philosophy, this is law, as immutable as gravity, as certain as the sunrise. Listen closely. This next part separates the rich from the poor forever. So do not look to the newspapers, the bank account, or outer circumstances. These are shadows of previous assumptions, echoes of the old you, not the new you. The new you is a millionaire now. You must walk as though you already possess what the world says is still to come. You must dine with the wealthy in your imagination. Walk through your mansion in consciousness. See the figures in your bank account as done, final, unquestioned. I am not speaking poetically. I am speaking literally. Everything in this world is a manifestation of imagination. The house you live in, the clothes you wear, the voice you hear, all came forth from an inner act. Someone imagined it, dared to believe in the invisible, and the visible world conformed. A billionaire once told me this secret, and now I'm sharing it with you. The wealthy know something the poor do not. They know that money is not earned. It is assumed. They know that wealth is not acquired. It is embodied. They know that riches are not obtained through struggle. They are claimed through state. This is why some people work their entire lives and remain poor, while others seem to attract wealth effortlessly. It is not about intelligence, education, or even opportunity. It is about the state from which they operate. Here's the story that proves this isn't just theory. This actually happened. Consider the man who was down to his last dollar. No hope, no job, no prospects. His electricity was about to be shut off. His rent was 3 months behind. Everyone had given up on him, including himself. But he heard these truths and made a decision that would change everything. He began to live as though he were already wealthy, not pretending, actually living from that state. He imagined himself writing checks freely, gifting his family generously, waking up in abundance. Every morning he would lie in bed and feel the sensation of silk sheets instead of his worn cotton ones. He would imagine the weight of his platinum watch, the sound of his luxury car starting, the respect in people's voices when they spoke to him. What happened next will shock you. He did this so often and with such faith that he could feel the weight of money in his hands, even when his pockets were empty. Then one morning, exactly 28 days later, he received a phone call that changed everything. A forgotten investment from years before had matured. A small stock purchase he'd made and completely forgotten about had split multiple times. He was now worth over $2 million. He did nothing in the outer world to make it happen. He simply accepted it as real in his imagination first. But here's what's even more remarkable. This was not a coincidence. This is how the law works for everyone who dares to apply it. But here's the secret most millionaires will never tell you. The law does not care whether the assumption is true or false in the current moment. It simply reflects what is impressed upon it with feeling and persistence. You are the operant power. You choose what to believe. And if you believe, truly believe, not just hope, that you are already wealthy, that the money is already yours, that every need is met, then reality will reorganize itself to reflect that inner conviction. It must. It has no choice. The world is a mirror that never lies. It reflects what you are, not what you want. So be the thing you seek, and the thing will come running to you with the speed of your conviction. This is where most people sabotage themselves. Don't make this mistake. This is not positive thinking. Positive thinking is trying to paint over doubt with pretty words. This is not about feeling good when you have no reason to feel good. This is about entering a state of consciousness that matches the result you desire and remaining there regardless of outer circumstances. If you can enter and remain in that state, the state of already being wealthy, you will manifest the conditions, people, opportunities, and events that match it. The universe has no choice but to conform to your assumption, but you must be willing to feel wealthy when your bank account says otherwise. You must be willing to think like a millionaire when the bills are piling up. You must be willing to act from abundance when the world shows you lack. Here's exactly how millionaires think differently. How would a millionaire walk? They would walk with certainty, with quiet confidence, not arrogance, confidence. There's a difference. Arrogance compensates for insecurity. Confidence simply knows. How would they speak? They would speak with authority, not because they need to prove anything, but because they know who they are. Their words would carry weight because they are spoken from a state of having, not wanting. How would they think? They would no longer worry about bills, because bills are not a concern for someone with unlimited resources. They would no longer shrink from generosity, because giving is natural when you know there's always more where that came from. They would feel quiet confidence, divine satisfaction, steady knowing. That feeling is the secret. I'm about to share the exact technique that changes everything. All transformation begins with assumption. The assumption of the feeling of the wish fulfilled is the creative act. It is the only creative act. Everything else is just the working out of that assumption in the world of effects. This work is done in silence, in stillness, within. You may do it lying on your bed, riding the bus, waiting in line. No one needs to know. In fact, it's better if they don't. This is sacred work, intimate work between you and the infinite. To be a millionaire in 1 month, you must think from the end, not to the end. This distinction is crucial. Do not think of money, think from money. Do not imagine getting rich. Imagine already being rich. Here's the visualization technique that never fails. See yourself walking into your bank, not to deposit a paycheck, but to speak with your private wealth manager about where to invest your millions. Feel the deference in the banker's voice. Notice how differently people treat you when they know you have money. Hear the conversations people would have with you. How did you become so successful? What's your secret? Will you invest in my business? Feel the weight of these requests, the responsibility that comes with wealth. See the letters you would write, not bills you're paying, but checks you're writing to causes you care about. Feel the joy of having more than enough, not just for yourself, but for everyone you love. Use all your senses. What does wealth smell like? The leather in your new car, the expensive cologne you can now afford, the fresh flowers in your mansion. What does it sound like? The quiet hum of your luxury vehicle, the applause at the charity gala where you're the keynote speaker. A woman followed this exact process, and here's what happened. She once attended one of my talks. She was a single mother, working 3 jobs, barely making ends meet. She had $47 in her bank account, and her car had just broken down. By every external measure, she was the last person you'd expect to become wealthy. But she understood these principles. She began to live in the assumption that she was already financially free. Every night before sleep, she would imagine herself in a beautiful home, debt-free, able to spend quality time with her children without worrying about money. She would feel the satisfaction of writing the final payment on her mortgage, the joy of taking her kids on vacation, the peace of knowing she never had to worry about money again. She did this consistently for 23 days. What happened next proves this law works for anyone. On day 24, she felt inspired to buy a lottery ticket. Now, she had never bought a lottery ticket in her life. She'd always said it was a waste of money, but the inspiration was so strong, so clear, that she couldn't ignore it. She didn't pick the numbers logically. She simply felt inspired by certain numbers and chose those. When she scratched the ticket, she found herself suddenly in possession of $750,000, not millions, but more than enough to change her life completely. She was not surprised. She had already received it within. The ticket was merely the bridge of incidents that the universe used to deliver what she had already claimed in consciousness. And she knew that if she could do it once, she could do it again and again. But here's what you must never do if you want this to work. The key is feeling, not just mental imagery. Without feeling, imagination is sterile, powerless, nothing more than daydreaming. But with feeling, with the feeling of reality, with the feeling of possession, imagination becomes the creative power of the universe itself. So do not imagine mechanically. Do not repeat empty affirmations like a parrot. Do not visualize while thinking about your problems or doubting whether it will work. Feel your way into the scene. Dwell in it. Savor it. Let it saturate your being. Let the imagined scene be more real than what your eyes see. What your eyes see is temporary. It's just the shadow of past assumptions playing out. But what you imagine with feeling is eternal and creative. It is the cause that will soon become the new effect. There is one mistake keeps people broke their entire lives. Most people imagine what they want, then immediately look around to see if it's manifesting yet. This is fatal. This is doubt masquerading as checking progress. Every time you check, you're operating from the assumption that it hasn't happened yet. Instead, you must imagine, then rest in the satisfaction of knowing it is done. Feel the completion. Feel the fulfillment. Feel the certainty that comes from knowing something is already accomplished. In the next 30 days, if you do this one thing consistently, you will be a millionaire. In 1 month, if you will live in the end, assume the reality of wealth, and remain faithful to that assumption, regardless of what your senses report, the millions will come. Whether through sudden opportunity, an unexpected gift, a forgotten investment, a new business venture, or a miracle beyond human reason, it does not matter. The method is not your concern. The assumption is your power. Hold to it. Refuse to waver, no matter what the world says. The world will test your faith. It will show you the opposite of what you want. It will whisper that you're deluding yourself. This is normal. This is expected. The old assumptions are dying hard, but persist. Persist with the stubbornness of someone who knows a secret the world doesn't understand. Here's what most people don't understand about money and consciousness. You are not waiting on money. Money is waiting on you. It is waiting on your consciousness to match its frequency. It is waiting on your self-concept to rise to the level of wealth. It is waiting on your assumption to become so stable that the universe has no choice but to conform to it. Money is not hiding from you. Opportunities are not avoiding you. Success is not playing hard to get. You are simply not yet vibrating at the frequency that attracts these things naturally and effortlessly. But the moment you change your assumption, the moment you begin to operate from the state of already being wealthy, everything changes. You become a magnet for wealth because you are wealth in consciousness. Here's the daily practice that guarantees results. Become now the person who has it. Not tomorrow, not when you see evidence, but now. Think as they think, feel as they feel, live as they live, do it boldly, do it faithfully, do it joyfully. Every morning when you wake, before you check your phone, before you think about your problems, spend the first few minutes of your day assuming you are already wealthy. Feel the satisfaction, feel the security, feel the freedom. Every night before you sleep, review your day as though you lived it as a millionaire. If you acted from lack during the day, revise it in your imagination. See yourself acting from abundance instead. This is not dishonesty. This is creation. It is the inner conversation that creates millionaires. You cannot speak lack and live abundance. You cannot grumble about bills and expect financial freedom. You cannot complain about your job and attract better opportunities. The law is not mocked. It gives you exactly what you continually affirm within. Train your inner conversation to reflect your desired outcome. Speak within as though you are already rich. I always have more than enough. Money flows to me from multiple sources. Everything I touch prospers and multiplies. I am blessed with abundant wealth. Do not say these things like mantras, without meaning. Say them with conviction, with feeling, until they move you, until they feel like the only truth you know. You do not manifest what you occasionally feel. You manifest what you consistently assume. The next technique dissolves doubt instantly and permanently. When doubt creeps in, and it will, do not wrestle with it. Do not argue with it. Do not try to convince it otherwise. Simply return to the state. Let the scene of fulfilled desire play again. Let the feeling of the fulfilled state return. You do not destroy doubt by fighting it. You dissolve it by starving it of attention. You starve it by feasting on the assumption of the wish fulfilled. Every moment you spend in the state of wealth is a moment doubt cannot exist. Doubt and faith cannot occupy the same space. Choose which one you will feed with your attention. Whatever you feed grows stronger. Whatever you starve grows weaker until it disappears entirely. Why some people get rich quickly while others struggle forever. All power is in the present assumption, not tomorrow's hope, not next week's plan, not next year's goal, but this moment's assumption. This is your power. This is your moment. In this very moment, you may assume that you are the millionaire you desire to be. If you remain faithful to that assumption, if you refuse to be moved by contrary evidence, if you persist despite the laughter of friends and the doubt of family, the world must show it to you. It must, for imagination creates reality, and imagination is always now. The rich understand this intuitively. They assume they deserve wealth. They assume opportunities will come to them. They assume they will succeed, and so they do. The poor assume the opposite and wonder why their assumption proves itself true as well. Now I give you the scientific proof that this actually works. Modern quantum physics has confirmed what the mystics have always known. Consciousness creates reality, not the other way around. The observer effect shows us that the act of observation changes what is observed. Your assumption is your observation of reality. When you assume you are wealthy, you are observing yourself from the state of wealth. This observation, held consistently, with feeling, must manifest as the experience of wealth in your outer world. It is not magic, it is law. The universe is not solid matter moving through empty space. It is consciousness appearing as matter, energy, space, and time. Change the consciousness, and you change the appearance. This is not theory, this is demonstrable fact. Neuroscience has shown that your brain cannot tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. When you imagine yourself as wealthy, with enough detail and feeling, your brain creates the same neural pathways as if you were actually wealthy. These neural pathways then influence your behavior, your decisions, your posture, your speech. Everything about you begins to align with wealth consciousness. You start to notice opportunities you missed before. You start to take actions you wouldn't have taken before. But this is just the beginning. The real magic happens when your assumption becomes so natural, so automatic, that you forget you're assuming it. When being wealthy feels more natural than being poor, the transformation is complete. There's a mistake that keeps 90% of people stuck in poverty. Most people imagine wealth as something separate from themselves, something they might get, something they might become, something that might happen to them. This is the fundamental error that keeps them bound to limitation. Wealth is not something you get. It is something you are. It is not something external that comes to you. It is something internal that expresses through you. The moment you realize you are not trying to become wealthy, but simply recognizing that you already are wealthy in consciousness, everything changes. You stop chasing money and start attracting it. You stop working for wealth and start allowing it. You stop trying to force doors open and start finding them already unlocked. Here's how to know when your assumption is working. You will notice subtle changes at first. People will treat you differently, though they won't know why. You will feel an inner certainty that cannot be shaken. Even when your bank account still shows the old figures, ideas will flash into your mind. Business ideas, investment ideas, creative ideas that could generate income. Opportunities will knock, people. will offer you deals, partnerships, chances you never had before. You will feel an inner magnetism that draws wealth-related situations to you. And even if you do not yet see the dollars, you will know they are near. You will feel them forming like clouds gathering before the rain. Do not dismiss these signs. They are not coincidences. They are evidence that your assumption is taking root in the deeper mind. I will give you now the daily ritual that accelerates manifestation. Water your assumption with faith. Do not dig it up with doubt by constantly checking for evidence. Trust the process completely. If you should falter, if fear arises, if doubt creeps in, return at once to the state. Close your eyes and enter again. See the money. Feel the joy. Hear the congratulations. Feel the weight of success. Do this as often as needed, for repetition impresses the subconscious mind, and once the subconscious accepts something as true, the outer world must follow. You are not trying to force reality, you are allowing it to become what you have already accepted within. There is no strain in this, no effort, no struggle. There is only assumption and faith. The next story of a woman will give you chills. Another woman told me she followed this process, and within 3 weeks began receiving checks in the mail. Not paychecks, unexpected checks. A tax refund she'd forgotten about. A class action settlement she didn't know she was part of. A rebate from a purchase made years ago. Each check was small by itself, but together they totaled over $3,000. She was not surprised. She had been living in the assumption of money flowing to her from expected and unexpected sources. The universe simply used these forgotten channels to deliver what she had claimed. But this was just the beginning. By week 4, a relative she barely knew left her $50,000 in their will. By month 2, she was offered a job paying 3 times her previous salary. By month 3, her small side business had exploded with new customers. I tell you the secret that wealthy families have used for generations. Old money families understand this principle instinctively. They raise their children with the assumption of wealth, not the hope of it. Their children grow up never doubting they will be wealthy because they are surrounded by the assumption of wealth from birth. This is why wealth tends to stay in families, not just because of inherited money, but because of inherited assumptions. The consciousness of wealth gets passed down more powerfully than the money itself, but you can create this consciousness in yourself right now, today, this moment. You do not need to be born into it. You can assume it, embody it, become it through the power of your own imagination. The key is feeling without forcing. When you feel that you already are a millionaire, not that you're trying to become one, the struggle ends and the flow begins. Imagination without feeling is sterile, but with feeling it is the creative power of God Himself. So do not imagine mechanically. Do not repeat empty affirmations. Feel your way into the scene. Dwell in it. Savor it. Let it saturate your being. Let it be more real to you than your current bank balance. For the truth is, your current balance is only real because you have continued to give it your attention and belief. Shift your attention to your desired balance, and you shift your world. When you begin to live from the end, the outer world becomes irrelevant to your sense of identity. You will no longer look to circumstances to tell you who you are. You will look within, and what you feel yourself to be within, the world will soon reflect without. You will notice synchronicities that are not coincidences at all. A chance meeting with someone who has the exact opportunity you need. An old contact calling with a business proposal. A new idea lighting up your mind like a lightning bolt of inspiration. But these are not the source of your wealth. They are the effect of your assumption. The source is your consciousness. You are not at the mercy of economics, governments, or fate. You are at the mercy of your own imagination. But once you realize this, you are no longer at mercy. You are in control. This is the great secret, hidden in plain sight. The world will tell you that you must work harder, network more, struggle and compete and fight for every dollar. But I tell you, all of that is vanity if it is not rooted in the right assumption. You may gain the world through struggle and lose your soul in the process. But if you gain your imagination, If you learn to assume what you desire and persist in that assumption, the world is yours without struggle. This is the great secret, hidden in plain sight. The meek shall inherit the earth, not because they are weak, but because they do not resist. They assume and allow. They imagine and receive. If you're starting with nothing, this is perfect. So if today you sit in a small room without wealth, without proof, without evidence that any of this is possible, do not despair. That is the perfect place to begin. In fact, it is better than having some wealth, for the world cannot distract you with partial success. Close your eyes and go within. Begin to feel the room change around you. See yourself in a place of elegance and beauty. Hear the sounds of luxury, the quiet hum of expensive appliances, the whisper of silk curtains, the gentle bubbling of a fountain in your garden. Smell the scent of wealth, fresh flowers that are replaced daily, expensive leather, the clean air of your country estate. Let the imagined experience become more real than the one before your eyes. This is how you know you're doing it right. As you do this consistently, your inner state will change. And when the inner state changes, the outer must follow by law. You may begin to walk differently, with more confidence, more purpose. You may speak with more certainty, more authority. You may find yourself smiling for no apparent reason, feeling secretly amused by the gap between what others see and what you know. This is not delusion. This is creation. You are becoming the one who has. You are shedding the skin of the one who hoped and becoming the one who knows. The world may not understand, but it does not need to. It only needs to respond, and it always responds to the one who feels himself already in possession of the goal. In the quiet moments of each day, remind yourself, it is done. Not it will be done, but it is done. The million is yours now. You are already living from it. You are already receiving from it. You are already enjoying it. Let that be your new inner conversation. Let it repeat, like a sacred song in your soul. You will be tempted to look around and measure your progress, but resist. Faith does not consult appearances. Faith remains steady, and when faith is steady, reality bends. The world is not happening to you. You are happening to the world. As you imagine, as you assume, as you persist, the world reforms itself. It may seem slow at first, but that is only because old assumptions still linger in the deeper mind. This is not magic. This is law. Be patient. Be bold. Be consistent. This is not magic, though it may appear so to the uninitiated. This is law, divine law, immutable, precise, and utterly obedient to your assumptions. The riches you desire are not somewhere out there, hidden in a vault, waiting for a stroke of luck. They are here now, in this moment, waiting for you to rise to their frequency. That frequency is belief. That frequency is assumption. That frequency is the feeling of already being wealthy. Ask yourself not, what do I want, but who must I be to already have it? And then become that person. Speak as them. Think as them. Walk as them. Live as them. If you find doubt creeping in, do not wrestle with it. Do not try to convince it, or argue with it, or push it away. Simply return to the state. Let the scene of the fulfilled desire play again. Let the feeling of the fulfilled state return. You do not destroy doubt by fighting it. You dissolve it by starving it of attention. You starve it by feasting on the assumption of the wish fulfilled. Every moment spent in the state of wealth is a moment doubt cannot exist. All power is in the present assumption, not tomorrow's hope, not next week's plan, but this moment's decision about who you are. This is your power. This is your moment. Real transformation happens when you master this. In this very moment, you may assume that you are the millionaire you desire to be. And if you will remain faithful to that assumption, if you will live from it rather than toward it, if you will persist despite all contrary evidence, the world must show it to you. It must, for imagination creates reality, and imagination is always now. So will you dare to imagine the life you desire and live from it without apology, without doubt, without delay? Will you persist when the senses say otherwise? Will you continue when the world offers no confirmation? For if you will, then the world must eventually conform to your inner conviction. Do not underestimate the power of the silence in which this work is done. You may not speak it aloud, you may tell no one, yet in the secret place of consciousness, you are reshaping the very nature of your experience. Each assumption carries with it its own pattern of life, its own quality of events, its own tone and texture. When you assume you are wealthy, the world around you begins to organize itself in alignment with that wealth. It draws to you the people who match that vibration. It reveals to you paths that were hidden from the eyes of the man who believed in poverty. But to the man who assumes wealth, every road leads to riches. Now is the time to discipline your inner speech with the dedication of a master. You cannot speak lack and live abundance. You cannot grumble about bills and expect financial freedom. You cannot complain about your circumstances and attract better ones. The law is not mocked. It gives you what you continually affirm within, whether that affirmation is positive or negative, conscious or unconscious, deliberate or accidental. So train your inner conversation to reflect your desired outcome. Speak within as though you are already rich. I always have more than enough. Money flows to me in expected and unexpected ways. Everything I touch prospers and multiplies. Your inner conversation changes everything. Say these things not like a parrot, repeating sounds, but with conviction, with feeling, until they move you, until they stir something deep within you, until they feel like the only truth you know. You do not manifest what you occasionally feel or sometimes think. You manifest what you consistently assume, what you habitually believe, what you naturally expect. So keep assuming, keep returning to the feeling. When you feel tempted to check the bank balance or count the days or measure the progress, remember that all of that belongs to the old man, the man of doubt, fear, and limitation. The new man walks by faith, not by sight. The new man smiles knowing it is already done, regardless of what the senses report. This is not denial of the senses. This is the recreation of the senses. For the senses only report what you have told them to report through past beliefs and assumptions. If you change the root assumption, the fruit must change. The outer is never cause. It is always effect. Begin to delight in your imagination. Make it a playground, not a chore. Let it be your retreat, your sanctuary, your sacred space. Feel the thrill of it. Let it surprise you with its richness and detail. I give you the technique that makes it feel real. Walk into imagined rooms, dripping with opulence. Feel the marble beneath your feet, the silk beneath your fingers. Hear the compliments of those who admire your success. Receive the gratitude of those you blessed with your generosity. Let the scenes flow not with strain, but with pleasure. This is how you loosen the grip of the old world. You do not fight it, you outgrow it. You do not struggle against it, you move beyond it through joyful assumption. Do not concern yourself with the opinions of others. They live in their own dream, and they are free to assume what they will. But their assumptions cannot affect your world unless you accept them as true for you. You must become ruthless with the mind when it offers thoughts of fear or limitation. You must say, "That is not my truth," and return immediately to the truth you have chosen. I am wealthy, I am free, I am abundant now. You must say it and feel it until it becomes automatic, until it becomes your nature, until it becomes so natural that you forget you're assuming it. Watch the quiet transformation that unfolds when you do this consistently. You will begin to attract conversations about opportunity. You will begin to notice doors opening that were once locked. You may even receive sudden gifts, unexpected refunds, surprise bonuses. These are not coincidences. They're reflections. Do not call them coincidences. They are reflections of your inner shift. The world must mirror the image you have painted within. It cannot resist, for it has no choice but to echo the reality you have assumed. Each day, do not ask, "Where is it?" Instead, say, "It is here now," and then act as though it is, even in the small things. How you dress, how you carry yourself, how you give, how you receive. You may not be able to do what a millionaire does in the outer world yet, but you can feel what he feels. You can imagine what he imagines. You can think as he thinks. And that inner alignment is the seed that brings the outer fruit. This truth about money will set you free. Let your mind dwell on this truth. All things already exist. The $1 million you desire already exists. It is not being created. It is already finished in the realm of the unseen. You are simply aligning with it, tuning into its frequency. And that alignment is not about hard work or moral worth or deserving. It is about state, the state of consciousness from which you operate. When you enter the state of the man who has, all things necessary to that state will find their way to you. So do not focus on the details of how it will happen. Focus only on being the one who already has it. Let yourself become the version of you who never worries about money, because money is never a concern. In 1 month, if you will live in the end, assume the reality of wealth and remain faithful. The millions will come, whether through a sudden opportunity, a gift, a forgotten investment, a new business, or a miracle beyond reason. It does not matter. The method is not your concern. The assumption is your power. Hold to it. Refuse to waver, no matter what the world says. You know the truth. Imagination creates reality. So I ask you now, will you dare to believe? Will you cast off the old man, the man of doubt, fear, and lack, and put on the new man, the man of riches, peace, and power? Will you persist, even when the world laughs, even when the senses say no? If so, then in 1 month's time, your outer life will mirror your inner conviction. The final truth is this. You are not waiting on money. Money is waiting on you. It is waiting on your consciousness to match its frequency. It is waiting on your self-concept to rise. It is waiting on your assumption to be stable. So become now the person who has it. Think as they think, feel as they feel, live as they live. Do it boldly. Do it faithfully. Do it joyfully. The law is no respecter of persons. It responds not to virtue but to vision, not to effort but to assumption. Let the world toil and strive while you enter your inner chamber and commune with the infinite. Imagine boldly, assume lavishly, and persist until the unseen becomes seen. For it must. It must. You are already that which you seek. You simply have not accepted it yet. Accept it now. Accept that you are rich. Accept that you are powerful. Accept that you are the operant power. And then walk in that assumption. For to him who has, more shall be given. And to him who dares, the world bows low. Let this month be your demonstration. Let this month be your proof. Every morning, every night, return to the state. Live in the end. Revise the day. Saturate your mind with images of wealth, sounds of joy, feelings of luxury, and then release it. Walk in peace. Act as though it were already so. And soon it will be. You will be a millionaire in 1 month. Not because of luck, not because of hard work, but because you dared to believe, you dared to imagine and persist. You dared to live in the end. And because of that, the world, this seemingly solid world, will melt and reshape itself to match your inner world. It always does. It always has. Now it's your turn to see it. The power is within you. The world will follow your lead. Go forward in this knowledge, knowing that you are not waiting for wealth to come to you. You are already living in it. Remember, the moment you truly believe, the world will make way for your reality to manifest.